Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bikes for Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I'm your host. And on today's episode, we are chatting with Hannah Simon, and this episode was actually recorded live at Cycle East. We had a great turnout. I did a head count while we were up there, and I think we got about 50 people that came, which was amazing. And I'm going to introduce today's episode live and in real time with Hannah. So we're going to get right to the housekeeping. And right off the bat, I'd like to address and apologize for the audio on this episode. I have to tell you that whenever I got home after recording this event, I checked the audio, and for whatever reason, whether it was a technical problem or a user error, Hannah's mic did not pick up her audio. And I could have darn near cried. I was almost in tears. I just couldn't believe it because I really, we've been following Hannah's journey for the entire year. This was our 4th episode. And I really, in my mind, I guess I thought of it as like the crescendo of the year, this final note that we were going to hit. And maybe putting it into Triple Crown terms, it's like we got right up to the finish line of the AZT and DNF'd. And so anyway, I was able to pull audio from a couple other sources. I actually had 5 different audio sources with 2 different cameras, and I stitched it all together the best that I could. And if you squint your eyes, tilt your head to the side, and use your imagination, just pretend that you're there with us at Cycle East in the audience. And I really hope it's not too bad. Maybe I'm overemphasizing it. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But I felt really bad about it, and I apologize to Hannah for that miscue and to the audience. So moving along, though, highs and lows, we'll get this one right. I will say that we do have this full episode available in video format on our YouTube channel. And I do think that adding the visual component kind of helps put the pieces together with the audio, maybe. That's worth considering, and it's available if you want it. All right, well, that is enough of that nonsense. Aside from that, we really had an amazing chat. It was an incredible episode. It really was an incredible chat, and we followed it up with a question and answer from the audience. We got great questions. Like I said, great turnout. The energy was high, and I love doing these live events. It's really sad that Cycle East is closing, but I can tell you that these events have been really well received. I'm enjoying them. Y'all are enjoying them, and I'm definitely going to be doing more of them going forward. So to be determined on where those take place, but we're definitely already making plans to do some more live podcasts. So stay tuned for that. And let's get to our show. But before we do, let's take a moment to thank the people that made today's episode possible, starting with the latest batch of patrons. We would like to thank Ed Pensky, Brian Thielen, and Preston Williams for signing up to be sustaining members of the Bikes for Death podcast. We appreciate everyone that helped us produce these episodes. We truly cannot do it without your support. And speaking of community support, it is Giving Tuesday. We are not a nonprofit, so maybe we don't technically fall into this category, but the biggest financial support that Bikes for Death receives does come from the community. It always has. You truly are the reason why I'm able to produce these episodes, this podcast. You always have been. You've always shown up big. And as we close out this year and look towards 2024 and making it the best year ever, if you like what we're doing, if you like the podcast, if you're enjoying the events that we're creating, I can tell you 2024 is only going to be bigger, and we could really use your support. So if you can and you would like to help see us grow, please consider joining us over on Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/bikesfordeath. All right, we also have a couple sponsors for today's episode. First up is Athletic Greens. The end of the year is a great time to start thinking about your health. Of course, all the time is a great time to start thinking about your health, but around the holidays, when the weather gets cold, the food gets yummy, it might not hurt to supplement your diet with Athletic Greens. I use mine daily, and I find it to not only be a good daily nutritional insurance, but also a great tool when I go bikepacking. It's small. You can mix it with water and get the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients that your body needs, and it's convenient. So if you'd like to take control of your health or give the gift of health to a loved one this holiday season, Athletic Greens is making it easy with a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. all you got to do is visit drinkag1.com/bikesor-death. Again, that's drinkag1.com/bikesor-death to take ownership of your health and to pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Now, today's episode is also brought to us by my friends over at Electric E-Bikes. And let me tell you what, I am absolutely in love with my new electric e-bike, whether I'm going on a quick trip to the store or for 100 other reasons. And now I want one for my whole family. Which makes me wonder, where would you go for the holidays if you and your whole family had electric e-bike? Well, I'm excited to tell you that Electric E-Bikes is making it easier for you to get an e-bike this holiday season because holiday savings are already here and Black Friday deals are happening now. So for a limited time, you can enjoy $100 off e-bikes and up to $450 in free accessories. Visit electricebikes.com to find the electric model for you. That's LECTRICE bikes.com. And if you use the link in the bio, Electric E-Bikes will send Bikes or Death a little something for the referral. So use our damn link and then go ride your damn e-bike. All right, everybody, that is it. Thanks to all of our sponsors, but the bill's been paid and now it is time to get to my episode with Hannah. And before we get to the episode, I do have a couple quick housekeeping notes. As we close out the end of the year, we have one more episode coming up. That is going to be an Ask Me Anything episode with me, yours truly. And this is your opportunity to put me in the hot seat. You can ask me anything you want. I love questions. I love asking them, and I'm curious to get yours, and I cannot wait to hear what you come up with. Whenever you think about questions, they don't necessarily have to be questions. You can send me your thoughts, your feedback, topics you want to hear about. Questions can range from anything with bikepacking to personal to fitness to mental health. I am willing to answer just about anything. And of course, if you ask something I don't want to answer, I just won't. And that is the benefit of being the host. So you have a good week or so to get those in. To submit those, probably the best way is to email them to me at bikes@bikesor-death.com. And for this year, I thought it would be fun to add the option to allow people to send their questions in as an audio file. So if you'd like to, you can record your questions. You can just use your voice recording app on your phone, whatever it is, record your question, and you can email me that file, and then I'll insert that into the episode. And I think that would be really cool, and I would love to get some of those. So we'll see what happens, but get those in, please. And the other thing that we're going to be doing on that episode is announcing the awards for the best episodes, the most inspirational, the most downloads, like all the awards for Bikes or Death. And we're also going to be sending out the end of year survey. So there's a lot going on, but again, end of the year, and we had a lot of housekeeping. But enough of that. Thanks for being here, everybody. Without further ado, let's have Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes or Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
All right, Hannah says we're ready. So let's do this. Welcome. Show up, Austin. What's going on? And one more time for your local legend, Hannah Simon. Literally. Yeah, let's get started, man. Thanks to everybody for coming out tonight. If anyone doesn't know, my name is Patrick. I'm the host of the Bikes or Death podcast. This is episode 168 of the podcast, and we just experienced, Bikes or Death did its 5th year as of November 6th. I didn't even realize that. And like many of you, I'm absolutely enamored by these humans and these athletes that do amazing things, and it's been an honor to share their stories. And another record that Hannah has, we'll be talking about some of them, is she holds the record for the most times appearing as a guest on the Bikes for Death podcast at number 6. or 6. This is your 6th appearance. Yeah. But your number 1 is where it lands. So if anyone doesn't know, Hannah just completed the Triple Crown of bikepacking. It is truly the crowning jewel in our sport. There is no greater achievement. There is no greater challenge in our sport than the Triple Crown. Let me tell you what that looked like for Hannah. Started with the Tour Divide, which was 2,745 miles. She completed that in 18 days, 11 hours. Came in tied for third place, shared third place. At the Colorado Trail Race, she rode her bike 580 miles in 6 days and 8 hours, coming in 6th place. And she wasn't done. Then she went to the AZT, where she's just back from, rode her bike mostly 800 miles. She also carried her bike for, is it 22 or 26 miles? I always hear different.
Well, it's 21 miles, but I Stravaed it as a hike, and it was
26.
So
that's why that's where the two numbers come from. Actually, good to know that. And she came in 3rd. So in total, she completed 4,075 miles in 36 days and 6 hours. She's one of 6 people this year to complete the Triple Crown. And also Katie Strimke, who she completed her career Triple Crown. So that's not in a calendar year, but she's done all 3 of those events. And I know there's a lot of numbers, but we're going somewhere with this very soon, I promise. I wanted to acknowledge, because one of the big storylines of this year was the women's field was absolutely phenomenal. It was 4 out of the 6 of the Triple Crown finishers this year were females. And so just to use some numbers to talk us through what happened this year, in 2015, Alice Drobna, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, had the records or set the record on a single speed in 36 days and 6 hours. This year, Triple Crown winners, we got some new FKTs. Katya set a new FKT of 32 days and 6 hours. Alexandra Houchin set a new single speed FKT of 34 days and 22 hours. And Hannah came in 3rd place. She is the 3rd fastest person ever to do the Triple Crown, or female to do the Triple Crown. And she beat Alice's time. Do you know that she beat Alice's time by 28 minutes?
Oh, I knew it was close.
According to the stats that I could find, and but it was close. But Hannah's the 3rd fastest to do it. So that's the end of the stats. One more. I mean, it took me a long time to say that, and you had to do all those things. So, I mean, first off, absolutely congratulations. And it's been really awesome to follow your journey throughout the year. I'm still ingratiated to you for taking us all along for the ride. As I said in the beginning, one of the cool storylines this year was just the strong women's field. And I think on the outside, we can all, good, fast, everybody's doing good, and this is fun. What's it like on the insider's perspective? Take us behind the curtain, and what is it like in the women's field of bike pack racing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I think whenever I decided to do the Triple Crown, I didn't realize how few people had done it, and I didn't know really when I said I was going to do it. I didn't really know what I was doing. And so to see who decided to do it in the same year as me, I feel really lucky to have had so much company. Because like you mentioned, there's only 6 women who have ever done it. And 4 of them were this year, which was really cool. So I think it was motivating in a lot of ways because it just reminded you that you weren't doing this thing alone. And I think it also was awesome to also come out with 3 really good friends who have supported me.
You do this too?
Yeah, absolutely. We're the same kind of crazy.
Hey, right, those guys are.
Yeah, exactly. So, you mentioned Katya setting up KTs left and right. I mean, and she's so casual about it. She was like, well, I had to be somewhere. So you got to go fast.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed my episode with her too, and it was just so casual.
Yeah, she's always like that. And then, Alexandra has been so supportive of me from the start. She and I hadn't met previous to Tour Divide, and she reached out to me when she heard that I was also doing Triple Crown, and we actually started Tour Divide together, and I got to see her as she was coming in. The last 40 miles or so, you're just on a straight shot road, and it had gotten dark, and she's on a single speed, just flat roads and awful sometimes. So I got to say hi to her as she was finishing Tour Divide, and I mean, from that second on, she's been so supportive of me, which has been awesome. And then Kristen, who finished just after I did for both Arizona and Colorado. She was a couple days behind the crew during Tour Divide, but I mean, she would have been right up there with us. She even told me during AZT, she was like, I wish I had known, because I would have kicked it into gear and then finished with all of that too. So it's been really awesome. I've got a whole crew of ladies now. I mean, Alexandra said it a bunch. She's been doing this for nearly a decade, and up until this past couple of years, she's been doing it kind of on her own. So now we all get to hang out together, which is really cool.
I'm so glad you said that, because my follow-up question is, I'm curious if you have any insights of where this growth is coming from, why all of a sudden, and I'm wondering if Alexandra has been a great example. I mean, do you have any sense of what caused this, upsurge of oh wow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think she has a lot to do with it. I think that it just takes a couple of us, and then people start realizing oh, maybe this is something I can do too. And I hope that it continues, because it has kind of ebbed and flowed. I mean, I've only been doing it for 2 years now, so I think that even just in the last 2 years, I've seen more and more people kind of come out of the woodwork and start riding their bikes for long distances too. I don't know if there's anything in particular necessarily. I do think that it's growing overall as a sport, bikepack racing generally, and so I think naturally it's going to pull more and more women to be doing it, and I hope it's inspiring. I think it has been.
It is. It definitely is. I think it's working, and I think the future's bright. So whenever you see someone do it, it's like when you beat the marathon record, right? The marathon record keeps coming down. And it unlocks that part of your brain. You're like, oh yeah, I can do that too.
Well, that's so cool, and I think that's the really nice part about the camaraderie of the thing is that yes, we're racing each other, but we're also just oh, I'm gonna go catch her. It doesn't feel like nobody wants anybody to do poorly or worse. It's just we're all pushing each other to be better, which is a really nice feeling.
Yeah, it's hard to be competitive over 4,075 miles over the, it's at some point you're just trying to survive or get to the finish. I failed to mention at the beginning that Hannah and I are going to chat, and then we're going to open up to a Q&A. So save away your questions, and we are excited to get your questions. I'm more excited for those.
I do want to take a moment. There are so many faces looking at you.
Whoa!
Really sweet. I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
Look at this turnout. Yeah.
This is really awesome. It's overwhelming to get to actually see all of you guys. Every time we've done one of these podcasts, it's just been Patrick and I, which is great. Don't get me wrong.
No, this is better.
But when Patrick mentioned doing another live podcast, I got pretty excited because I really do want to hear from you all and not just talk at you all night. So thank you so much.
I concur, absolutely. One thing I got to thinking about is have you ever DNF'd on a big ride? I was thinking back to that first 4,000 mile thing that you did across the United States that you signed up for on a whim, and it seems like this is your MO, but have you DNF'd?
I don't know that I have.
Yeah. Round of applause. Seriously, I don't think she has.
So I do remember back in the early days with Texas 4000, even on training rides, I remember one specific training ride that I bent my derailleur hanger on Scenic Drive. Lots of you know where Scenic Drive is. I had stopped because it was a really nice view, and I had leaned my bike up the wrong way, and it fell over, and it bent my derailleur hanger, and I was so mad because the people I was with were like, you really shouldn't ride your bike like that, and I was like, y'all, I've never been sad from a ride. I don't want to do this right now. And And so that sticks out to me because I did get picked up. But I don't really know if I've gotten picked up since then.
That's great.
That's amazing.
I don't know if anybody has any that they can pick up. But yeah.
I was thinking that's like a pretty, that's just
Yeah.
a town road, but like any of these big rides that you've done, and we can throw the Texas Showdown series in there, like, you know, the bigger stuff, like you've kicked them all in the teeth pretty well.
I'm sure it's coming for me. I was so scared on the Arizona Trail. I was like, don't make it this time.
This isn't the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going into this beginning of the year, back before, whenever you decided to sign up for the Triple Crown, did you come into it with a lot of confidence? Like, how confident were you? And also taking into account that it's not just your physical or mental ability, it's weather, it's mechanicals, like you touched on. I mean, there's things outside your control. So, I mean, how confident were you going into it, do you think?
Well, it's funny. I think I decided to do it, and like I said, in the moment, I don't really know that I knew what I was signing myself up for. It was like just over a year ago now that we had a little hangout at the Rocco Clubhouse. It was after Arkansas High Country, and myself and the two Hall sisters, Steph and Kayla, the three of us all got together, and I think a lot of y'all might have even been there. And of course, the question after we talked about High Country was like, what's next? And I said in that moment, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this Triple Crown thing. Like, somebody in the audience was like, hey, you know, you gotta carry your bike across the Grand Canyon for that. And I was like, huh? Like, what? And so in the moment, I was like, oh, that's a thing we consider. So maybe it was a little bit of ignorance. And then I also remember when you and I talked one of the first times, you were like, yeah, okay, so you've done Showdown a couple times, did High Country, now you're just gonna go do the biggest thing in Bikepackers thing? And I remember being like, is that a bad idea? Like, should somebody stop me?
I wasn't trying to frame it in that way. I love the hubris.
Question, yeah.
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, so I think part of me was confident because I had a lot of support. So being here at Cycle East, like, it was Russell that was like, hey, if you're gonna do this, you might as well go ahead and do it. Russell's the owner of the shop and he's my boss. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna remember you said that. Like, because I would love to make this a reality. But I think one of the biggest things about doing these big bikepacking races is it's really hard to get time off work to actually go and do it. It's a big barrier to entry, I think, especially doing all three in 1 year. So knowing I had that support from him specifically, and also from the whole crew of the shop, you know, there's a lot of time that I was not here that they held it down.
We missed you.
I really appreciate it. Well, yeah, Jim says they missed me. Yeah, I missed y'all too. For sure. And coming back every time, it's always been really grounding too, like just getting to come back to a place that didn't change a whole lot between, which was really nice to know that I'd have a job when I got back, except for this last time.
Spoiler alert.
But yes, I did have a lot of support. I had support from my job. I also had a lot of support from SRAM and Salsa. The bike that I rode for all three races was definitely essentially gifted to me in a lot of ways. I actually, the fork that I used for both Colorado Trail and Arizona Trail belongs to David. So there was
Congratulations.
yeah, there was a lot of support in getting me there. So I think that was helpful. And then building each one, you know, like once you finish a monster like Tour Divide, it's a little easier to look at Colorado Trail and Arizona and say like, okay, maybe I can make those work. And then Colorado Trail builds on it because then you're doing more mountain biking, but you're out there for a third of the time that you were for Tour Divide. Yeah, and then AZT is just a bitch.
Oh, I love that. That's a great segue. So yeah, let's talk about the AZT. That was actually a perfect segue. So if y'all haven't been following the series, as I mentioned, we've been following Hannah through all of her races this year. So today we're primarily going to be talking about the AZT, but if you want to, there's like 3 other episodes you can listen to all about Hannah and her bike riding. Mm-hmm. That's what you do. I think, you know, for people who haven't done the AZT and you just called it a bitch, it's a broad question, but how would you describe the AZT to somebody who's thinking about doing it, never ridden it before?
Yeah. So there are two different lengths. There's the 300 and the 800. Formerly was the 750 just a few years ago. So it starts at the border of Mexico in the middle of nowhere and goes through the state. The 300 finishes at a picket post, which is just north of like Tucson area. And then the 800 goes all the way through and finishes at State Line Campground, which is also in the middle of nowhere. So that's a big question, right? It's like, how do you get to these places in order to actually ride the route itself? So there is kind of a little rendezvous spot where the trail starts. I got out there by riding my bike from Tucson with Alexandra and Katya and Johnny and Connor.
And how far is it?
It was about like 150 miles.
So did you like do it the day before or take a couple days to do it, or like?
Yeah, we started on Monday, rode from Tucson at like 1 p.m. and then got there on Wednesday evening because the race started on a Thursday morning. And the Strumkeys were out there. They met us at the start. That's a couple that does a lot of these races single speed. So Katie Strumke, who Patrick had mentioned, she just finished her career Triple Crown, so she's done Tour Divide and Colorado Trail already, just not this year. And so she and Andrew have a van that they live out of, so they were there at the start and the finish, which was very helpful. They brought pizza to the start, and then Andrew made me the best cheese quesadilla I've ever had in my whole life at the end. But yeah, so I mean, in between those two, like I mentioned, there's the 300, which is honestly a pretty big chunk of it, like as far as how difficult the route is. That first 300 is a lot of climbing. And then this year, they included what's called the Lemon Push, which is the single track version of getting up Mount Lemon. It was not required for 300 riders. They could take the Lemon Highway. That's a perfectly good paved road that goes right up to the top of Mount Lemon. But if you're doing the 800 in true Arizona Trail fashion, you were required to do the Lemon Push, and that was new this year, which is a downhill mountain bike route that you have to go up. And if I'm being honest, at the end of that, I was like, let's just see about this Grand Canyon. Because the Lemon Push was honestly almost worse, It's just a lot of big boulders and like trying to lug your bike up, all of that. Of the 11 days I was out there, I did 24 miles going up Lemon Push in one day, and then I did 26 miles going through Grand Canyon on another, which is just wild to think about. So that's just comparatively speaking, like there are some other pretty big milestones. And I think there ended up only being 2 people that got through the push that ended up dropping after. So the other 18 finishers, like everybody who got through it got through the rest of the race too. So that's a good kind of, mark for like actually finishing the 800 as well.
Is it the push? Is it the Grand Canyon that define how difficult this route is, or other elements at play?
Those are 2 big ones. I would say the other thing is just the lack of resupply. It's very remote, and so you only go through one town, really. There's 2. There's one at mile 450, which is Payson, and that's truly, there are 2 reroutes that they're wilderness areas that you can't take your bike through, so luckily they don't make us hike through those. They go around them. And so one of those reroutes takes you through Payson. And then the other town is Tucson, which is like 8 miles south of the south rim of the Grand Canyon, which is nice. But other than that, you're really not going through any towns. And then water is just like super scarce. So I was carrying 7.5 liters for like most of the southern portion of the race. So I had 1.5 liters in my Nalgene on my down tube, and then I had 2 smart water bottles and a 2-liter pack that is like actually hooked up so I can drink from it, and then another 2-liter bladder in my backpack. So it's 6 liters of water on my back, and that's just not fun a lot of the time. Yeah, so it makes it that much harder because you have to carry all your stuff with you and you're also going through this really rough terrain, and you're just not seeing a whole lot of resupply.
One of the other factors, if we're talking about, I guess, how difficult the AZT is, especially this year, and it's common for the AZT, is wide range and fluctuation of temperature. So below freezing, well below freezing to well above 100. I know this year is particularly bad. How bad was it, and how well did you handle it?
Yeah. Down south, it was 105, I think, was one of the higher temperatures I heard. It's hard with your computer because I feel like it gets even hotter because it's in the sun. I mean, some folks were saying like 112, 113 in some places. But yeah, south of Tucson, it was definitely over 100. Which, I'll tell you what, I didn't think being from Texas was worth much in this world, in this bikepacking world, or this world generally. But I think I was heat acclimated from doing double teardown, my Tuesday Hills ride, leaving work and going to ride hills at 5:45 in the dead of summer, I think helped for many reasons. So it's pretty well acclimated. Also riding to the race, there was some adjustments to be made. I added a lot more water capacity riding from Tucson. And so I think that helps a lot with the heat, because that really took a lot of people out. And I was worried about it, but I ended up being okay. And then you get to the North Rim, and when I was riding away that morning, like the last day I was out there, it was 5 degrees, which was awful. The sun came up, and I was like, oh, it's gonna get warm. It did not get warm. It was like 3 p.m., and I was like, why is it not warming up yet? So it's a big range of temperature that you have to adjust for.
The cold part is what scared me.
Yeah, I was mostly prepared. I had stuff with me that I didn't want to stop to put on because it was too cold. But it was nice because then I had clean clothes at the end.
It was too cold to stop and put it on?
Yeah.
So you wanted the body heat moment, so you didn't want to stop it?
Like riding along, the warmest place for you is riding your bike because your body is moving. Right. And when you stop, it's just cold. So it was also the last day. I was like, just
fuck it.
Yeah.
Fuck it, let's go.
All right, rolling out of Queen Valley, mile 300 something, I don't know what, but feeling pretty good. Clouds in the sky for the first time this whole time, sun setting. Got 15 miles till Gold Canyon, gonna resupply with a bunch of stuff there, and then keep pushing out in the desert. The heat's been wild, but you know, if there's anything good about being born and raised in Texas, it's heat acclimation. So I've been doing fine with that. It's supposed to get cold up north, so definitely worried about the overnight 20-degree drop. But you know, I've been carrying these thermals for all of Tour Divide and all of Colorado Trail. So you know what? Maybe it's Arizona that's gonna be what makes me whip them out. We'll see. Onward.
The push over push. So it's 24 miles.
Yeah, so I don't know the names of everything, but it starts at Molino Basin. You're at I think it's 1,500 feet, and then you go all the way up to 85. And Lemon Push is in there. There's also Incinerator Ridge, and after all of that, you also have Oracle Ridge. So after Lemon Push, you get to the top, and then you go down another 2,000 feet, and then you go back up Oracle Ridge. And so that's included in that 24 miles because I went ahead and did that after Lemon, and just tried to get low after that because it was going to get cold. Yeah, so that whole section, there are more names of things in there that I probably should know, but doing all of those things back to back was quite a day. So it was disheartening at the end to realize that I only moved 24 miles.
How much of that was riding and how much of it was walking and how much of it was carrying your bike?
I started at 4 a.m. and I probably didn't ride. until the top, which was about 6 p.m.
And we're talking like boulders, like you're picking your bike up over.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost was like, should I put my bike on my back?
Right.
Like, does that make more sense to do it that
practice.
way? As a practice, I didn't end up doing that, but it was a thought.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. On social media, one of the things you highlighted was particularly challenging for you on the AZT this year was kind of the mental battle or strain of being alone. It's like a very desolate and arid place, and you mentioned you hadn't seen people for a while, and so what was it like to be out there on the Arizona Trail, and how did you overcome that like mental hurdle, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I just became a big baby. Just like everything.
We have different definitions of baby. So.
Yeah, well, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it in like a very tender way. It was very much like I got to a point where I was pretty exhausted, pretty depleted. And I remember there was one point that as I was hiking my bike, it was just particularly awful, and I just started saying out loud all the things I was grateful for. And then I was like, oh, it's so nice, there's like sunshine, and it reminded me of my partner's dog, and I just started crying, because her name is Sunshine. And I was like, oh my goodness, I just want to be like hanging out with them instead. And so I realized at that point, I was like, okay, we are tender, and we need to be kind to ourselves. And from then on, there were just some really soft moments that I think were really nice to just let myself feel that. Because for a long time, I think I was telling myself that it wasn't worth it to feel those things because it was too much energy to like cry. And then you get to a certain point where like you just can't stop happening. So I think there were definitely times during this race that I kind of like let those emotions flow in a way that I wasn't able to before, which was honestly really nice. And in some of those moments, it reminded me that I wasn't alone, that I did have people waiting for me at home, that I did have, you know, Alexandra kind of right in front of me. She got a pretty good gap. And then Kristen right behind me. And yeah, I think I mentioned in that post, like one night laying down and just feeling like I was pretty lonely, and then looking at the track leaders and seeing that she was right there, that Kristen was like a mile or two behind me. Tears again. And so it was nice to like actually let myself feel those things, and also understand that it doesn't have to be a bad thing, that like that's just where you go sometimes in these races. And somebody did mention to me since that post, I think it was like, oh man, is she okay?
Yeah. I didn't do that.
Yeah, right. But and I think it was nice because so many people did reach out to me and say like, oh man, I've felt that too. Like I've been there too in these situations. And so that was nice to just realize like, okay, you're not alone here, you're not alone in how you feel, and it's okay, but keep going. So yeah.
It almost sounds, I'm curious to get your perspective, that maybe you found that it's easier just to experience those emotions, allow them to go through you rather than try to fight against them and be like, oh, I'm going to just not cry and suck it all up and just keep going. It's just like, just let it flow through you. I don't know.
Yeah, it was interesting to kind of reach that. It was a little bit of a breaking point. Because I remember during Colorado Trail, there were a couple times that I was just like, you know, I had some voices from my past being like, it's not worth it, crying doesn't help anything. Sometimes it does.
There you go. Sometimes you can cry. I think crying is synonymous with bikepacking. I really do believe that. The Grand Canyon. We have to talk about the Grand Canyon, and I think it would be a great time to put the bike on your back if you want to. If you want to do a demonstration, yeah. So this is put it on. This is what you never see, right? We all know how to ride bikes. We know how to fix a flat or whatever. How many of y'all know how to take your bike apart, put it on a backpack, and then put that on your bike? I don't understand it. Let's go.
So this is the Osprey Cirrus 24 liter. It's the smallest pack that they make that actually has this frame in it. And originally,
Oh no, you're good.
originally I was gonna have it modified, but Hanson and I talked about it. He's from Dark Realm, and he sent me a video. He was like, honestly, it's got a lot of straps on it. So I was like, all right, let's try it. So it's attached at the top here. There's 2 buckles, one that's around my down tube here and one that's around my seat stay. And then I have the handlebars kind of strapped with, it's a little awkward. I have the handlebars strapped here with this side kind of like buckle. And that holds those in place too. So, you guys can't make fun of me with the whole loop, but put it on like that.
Like a professional.
Yeah. And then you just kind of like,
Shimmy?
yeah.
Do a little jump.
Do you cry while you do it?
You cry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm all tangled up. I can't help it.
Oh. She even put water in there. She is that nervous. I was like, there's no, you can't start taking 10 quarters now. She filled up all her water and everything.
You gotta be realistic about it. Well, I put it on a couple of my friends' backs because I was like, check this out. Yeah. So then you get this in there.
And you just hiked 26 miles.
Hike down the biggest canyon in the world. I don't know if it's the biggest in the world. I should look
It
it
is now.
up. So there it is.
Go ahead and pick up the mic. I'm going to interview while you. I mean, you already did 26 miles, so let's just have a little quick chat. What is it? How does that feel right now? How does that feel?
It's good right now.
Okay.
And it's, the thing I realized is that it's so heavy that it's not ever gonna not hurt. So you just have to figure out a way to get it onto your back without, what I was going for was like just acute pain, like pain in the moment, and then try to make it to where afterwards it doesn't hurt for longer.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like walking and I'm like, I'm not out of breath, I gotta walk faster.
Can we just pause and acknowledge that those are the decisions you're making when you're a bike packer? It's like, I'm going to go with acute pain now, so hopefully I don't have prolonged pain later, and that's what you're dealing with. Like, that's just amazing.
Absolutely. And it worked pretty well, considered. I did have to keep an eye out on this side, because you get kind of narrow, so you gotta go sideways. And then the best one was like when there was anything above me. Because you gotta get more crazy.
Yeah, she's done this. You can tell. All right, you can put it down. Good job. If you want to, yeah. You can do the rest of the interview with it on.
Harder to put it down.
I would offer to help, but that didn't go well the first time. How was the big canyon, the big old Grand Canyon? I asked this question on my last episode, but I think it's a decent question. What is it like to stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon, strap your bike to your back, and get ready to descend into the Grand Canyon? Like, what is that like?
It feels insane. It feels insane. No, I think honestly, it's at mile like 7:15 of 800, and so it really felt like, all right, this is it. Like, we just do this, and then we've only got 77 miles to go on the other side. And so once I got there, I was honestly excited. I was like, ooh, this is weird and different. I said to my friend Jolene, she like had FaceTimed me a couple days before I got to the canyon, and I was like, I'm kind of stoked on this. She was like, yeah, I think it's just heinous enough that it's like something that is exciting. She's great like me too. But I think that it was a milestone to get there. And then once you actually start descending into the canyon, the first 7 miles is like truly down. Like you were just going straight down. And like as you're doing that, you're like, well, this is, I gotta get out of here. Like there's no other way out. There are helicopters and mules, and that's it. So you really don't, like there's not really an option to quit once you start it, unless you have a lot of money, which I don't. Yeah, so I think going down was rough on the knees, and then coming back up, you've got about 7 miles of pretty steady uphill, and then the last 7, it's like, starts to kick up, and the last 3, it's really bad. So I started at 7 a.m., hiking down, I did go buy the mules. So that was one of my favorite moments because as the mules were coming up, there was a real cute cowboy. And he looked at me and said, "You're as strong as a mule." And I was like, and the other thing too that people tend to talk about is like there are so many people hiking the Grand Canyon, and every single one of them are like, "What are you doing?"
Because there's such a gap in between the riders that they're not seeing multiple riders. You're the only one most likely.
There was this group of women, they were like, "Oh, you must be way ahead. We have not seen anyone."
Right.
I don't know, they're just that far ahead of me. Yeah. And then the guy that was behind me, his name's Eric, he was funny because I saw him at the end and he was like, "Man, you must have done something because everyone that saw me was like, that girl in front of you looks strong." He was like, "I don't think they were calling me weak," but yeah, that was funny to hear after the fact. Because there were some, he was close enough behind me, I think there were some overlap for people that had seen me and seen him. So yeah, and then I really, truly, the last 3 miles was just the worst part. It had gotten dark and it got cold. And luckily there was no one around because it was a true sufferfest. It's like 15% for the last 1 or 2. And once you get to the top, it's like switchbacks and switchbacks. And the last one's really long and it just feels like it's never gonna end. And it was crazy because once I got toward the top, I kind of turned my phone back on. I had a text from Katya and she was like, "That last mile is the longest ever. But you can do it." And I was like, "You're right." Yeah, so got to the top and collapsed on the ground. And maybe we'll put that soundbite talking about how it was the worst thing I've ever done. Yeah.
Insert that here.
Yeah.
It is 8:11 a.m. We are on the South Kaibab Trail down into the Grand Canyon. My bike is strapped to my back, and it's a beautiful day to do dumb things. Yeah, so far doing all right. Just gotta remember to eat food and stay hydrated because my legs are already a little shaky. And we're not very far through this, so we'll see how it goes. I'll check in probably at Phantom Ranch. Oh, sorry. Out here in the Grand Canyon, mile 14 of 22-ish, and we're doing it. It's 3:53 in the afternoon. Got about 2 hours of daylight left. Definitely going to be hiking in the dark. Definitely not looking forward to it. But gotta do what you gotta do. Gotta get through this canyon. So hopefully at a reasonable hour. And then I'll probably honestly just collapse and get up and finish tomorrow. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be so inspired to get this thing over with. To finish. That I'll just keep going. I don't know.
Was it more hard than pretty or more pretty than hard?
It was beautiful. And I will say that hike is really, really lovely. It's well maintained because people are there all of the time, which was the nice part. There are parts of this trail that you don't see a lot of people, and so the fact that I was not like tearing through catcall the whole time was actually kind of nice. And there was a point too that I didn't realize, like I got to some of the switchbacks, you can't really see where the trail goes. So I kind of had a couple moments of like, oh, like I'm gonna get out of here, right? Like there's a way out that I hadn't felt before.
You're like, I live here now.
It was a little bit of like claustrophobia.
That was scary.
Yeah. I really had to kind of stop myself from thinking about it because I was like, there's a trail somewhere.
Was that based on hallucination, tiredness, just dread?
Yeah.
Just overall.
Because all the way down, you see it all.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna end up over there someday. But going back up, it's really hard to tell where you're going. So you kind of have to stop thinking about it and just like look good from the other.
All right. One of the nice things about having a podcast is sometimes you can ask questions that are self-serving, and this is one of those. I think other people can benefit from it too, but I'm doing the 300 in April, the AZT 300, and I'm having a hard time deciding between a carbon full suspension and a titanium hardtail like you rode. So if you were able to pick, what bike would you go with?
So I'm a little younger than you.
Sure. A lot,
actually. So I think if I were you, I would honestly probably go with carbon.
The most honest human being I've ever met.
We know each other.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's good.
So one of the things that struck with me that Lael said to me once, kind of offhand, I said something about like, oh yeah, I've got this like timberjack and I'm gonna try to ride for all 3 races. And she goes, hardtail on Arizona Trail? Ouch. And I was like, oh. So I was a little bit worried about it, honestly. I also have a carbon full sus.
I know.
It's comfier for sure. It's harder to pack, so you have to make sure that all the stuff that you need can go on the bike. But if you can make that work, I would say that the full suspension would be more comfy than a hardtail. But it's not that you can't do it on a hardtail. Obviously.
I'm gonna listen to you.
Yeah, it would be a lot comfier.
I put a poll on my Instagram and like 100 people voted, and 69% of the people voted for a titanium. Nice. It was actually 68%, but we all know that it's actually 69%. But then like Kurt Refsnyder messaged me on Instagram. They're like, don't listen to these people that haven't run the AZT. Get a carbon full suspension. And Lael's answer the same. So, all right.
Yeah.
That actually, I think other people can benefit from that one too. Let's talk about the Triple Crown at large. 3 races, 3 routes. Which one was the hardest for you? And maybe why?
Yeah. I would say AZT is probably the hardest. It's the freshest on my mind too. Yeah, I would say it's the hardest technically because it is true mountain biking and because of the resupplies being so scarce. Yeah, so I'd say overall AZT. I think Tour Divide is hard because of how long it is. That really started to wear on me. And Colorado Trail is hard because it's up at 12,000 feet for a lot of the time, so you just can't breathe.
That's hard.
Yeah, that's hard. Do I have a favorite?
You don't have a favorite? That's a good answer.
If I had to choose, I'd say Colorado probably because it takes the least amount of time again because it's very pretty. But you know, I've tried to figure out how to talk about this without sounding like a little bit of a brat. But I realized partway through AZT that I think when I said I was going to do Triple Crown, I don't know that it was something that I wanted to do personally. I think it was a challenge that was presented to me, and I was like, yeah, that's something I should do. And so I had to do some reframing during this one because I was like, why do I have such a bad attitude about this? Like, this is such a privilege to get to be out here riding my bike. You know, it has taken a lot for me to get to do it. A lot of people have sacrificed things. I have sacrificed a lot. So like, why was I feeling so kind of dreadful of it beforehand? And so once I was able to say, okay, maybe it's something that I didn't necessarily want to do. It's just part of this like Triple Crown thing. Like, what is it that I do want to do? And I realized like, let me push for something that really intrigued me because it is really, really hard, and I was like, that will feel really good to get to like experience and finish. And then Grand Canyon was another one that I was like actually excited about. And so that helped with the like baby steps of getting through this last one. But it was really strange to like kind of realize that even though it's something that's it feels like a really big deal, I wasn't entirely sure that I wanted it. I chose it, but I don't know that I wanted it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's dig in there just a little bit. Yeah, what was not appealing about the AZT, or why do you think that you had this like block towards it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of me was scared of it. It was definitely something that I know a few friends who have attempted, and so it definitely scared me some. which adds to a little bit of the appeal, because then it's nice once you're out there and actually doing it. You're like feeling pretty fulfilled because you're doing the thing that you're scared of. But I think it was also just like I was really tired after having done Tour Divide and Colorado. And I think I realized that doing Colorado, there were a couple people that were like, man, this is all I've thought about for like the past year. How are you doing this?
Not to mention you found out right before AZT about Cycle East and your career change like happened. So you had a lot of external stuff going on in the background as well.
Truly, yeah, and I think that's something that came on. It wasn't a surprise to me, like we had talked a lot about the shop closing, but it was really real at that point. And it's feeling more and more real every single day. So I do think there was a lot going on, even just in my personal life, that is going to change pretty soon. So, yeah.
What have you learned about yourself or taken away from this year in terms of, and kind of picking up on what you were saying about the AZT, about your own personal like enjoyment of this style of riding your bike, of racing, of doing these really hard things? Like, did you come away really loving this? Where did you land?
I would say I had a moment during this race that I kind of came up with this concept of what I started calling fast packing my brain. I told a couple of friends about this. I got really excited about it, actually. People have already used the term, but the way I was kind of defining it in my head was doing these big, long races, but having a minimum stop time that was required for this kind of like sector of racing. So you can still have FKT, race as fast as you can, stop as little as you want. But if you also had this other discipline of like, you have to do the same race, but you are required for every 24 hours you're out there, you gotta have 8 hours of that be stop time. And I started thinking about it as a concept because I was like, this is something that feels really important to me, because one of the things I hate about this sport is how much people feel like they have to like spread themselves thin to do it, and like how impressive it is to do something on very little sleep and very little sustenance. And so I kind of started thinking about that as a concept, and it could be different for each race depending on what feels necessary as far as rest goes. But it felt important to me, and something that I wanted to kind of start thinking about doing in my own style of racing. It came a little bit from Lachlan. Was it Lachlan Martin? Yeah, okay. So every 48 hours he was out there, he had 12 hours of stop time. And that was his own kind of decision. And he did it faster than anybody's ever done it.
Yeah.
So like, I think there's a little something there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it now on the internet, so just in case it becomes a thing, I can have a little bit of credit. But I do think it is really important, and I think that's something that I've realized in doing these races. Just like take care of yourself, because I think that is so much more admirable, and also might make you go faster. When I talked to Alexandra at the end of AZT, she said this is the most that she's stopped, and it's also the fastest she's gone. So I do think it matters. And yeah, like I said, I would be much more impressed with someone who finished this thing feeling like an actual person than just doing it the fastest.
Yeah, this is an interesting topic, and there's events that are now, like you say, that are mandating minimum sleep times. Whenever you're talking about doing it, are you talking about entering those style events, or just like if you were to do the AZT again, for example, you would do it fast packing, you know? Yeah,
I think it could be a cool option. I wouldn't want to take away the traditional style of bike packing.
Right.
I don't think that that's necessary, and I do think that can still be admirable in some sense. But I think it'd be a cool subset that puts everybody on a similar playing field as far as stop time goes. Just because it means that you're required to have that much time, and you can spend it whenever you want. And if you finish and you haven't stopped enough, then it's just added to the end of your time. the faster you do it, the less time that you need to have been stopped. So, you know, there's probably some math in there. And that's the other thing. I was like, God, am I going to add more simple math to this sport? Because there's so much of it already as far as just like how many
calories,
how many hours, how many calories. Yeah, there's like so many numbers already bouncing around in your head. But it's a lot.
The other thought is safety. I mean, it's like taking care of yourself, and then safety is the reason why a lot of these events, or some of these events, have adopted this this stoppage time. And I land where you land. Honestly, I like those style events, and I also like that if people want to, they can also go and not sleep and not eat, and that's fine if that's what they want to do. But having the option so people can feel like, yeah, I can actually sleep and be competitive and enjoy this and take care of myself is good. That's also good. I'm wondering how much time, if any, you've spent thinking about your accomplishment, and if, you know, feeling proud of yourself. It's so easy to nitpick, right? It's like what we're all good at is like, oh, I could have gone faster. I could have done it this way. Or have you had an opportunity to reflect on what you accomplished and how you feel about what the fuck what you just did? What just happened?
Yeah. I'm so bad about this because I come back and I go back to work and I see all my friends and I do all the same things that I did beforehand, and I think I've kind of fallen into a very comfortable rhythm that's nice, but I also have to like remind myself like, hey, you just did that, like that just happened. So I'm trying, and I will say that stuff like this does help because then it gets me to talk about it and remind myself that it very much did happen. It's not something to take lightly.
It's a big deal. This one actually is a big deal. This one actually is a big deal. Yeah. It's official. That's on the internet too now.
Yeah. So it's something that I'm trying to work on. I think I mentioned in one of our earlier episodes is just the like, what is it? Instead of being excited about it, it's just like slightly relieved that it's over.
I think that's also a fair feeling, but as it sets in, I hope that you will take the time to feel proud of yourself and to like really try to understand and appreciate like what you accomplished. Because like as a fan, and I'm sure much of this community is like absolutely in awe of you, inspired by you, and impressed by what you were able to do. So thanks for taking us along for the journey, and we're proud of you, aren't we? I thought we were. I was pretty sure we were proud of her. Let's ask her some questions. Anyone could go, and you just got to come get this microphone. Check. It's recording. Yep. And you can pass it around to anybody. Yep.
I think one of the coolest things about these events is not only do you have to carry food and water, you have to carry a lot of supplies and tools to repair the bike. So what was your most difficult mechanical out in the field, and what did you have to do to fix it?
Okay. Yeah. I get to talk about this. Yes. Thank you so much for the question. So I actually, I do have an answer to the toughest mechanicals on IZT, but I will say that I didn't have a whole lot of bike trouble while I was out there. It helps to be a bike mechanic. For sure. So there are probably little things that I maybe didn't realize I was doing. I will say during Tour Divide and Colorado Trail, about halfway through, I had my bike in a shop in front of somebody with the proper tools to like check through it all and make sure that it's like set to go, which I think helped preventatively. And that's the number one thing I want to say about this is that if you can prevent things from happening, like get ahead of them, then it is much easier when you're actually out there. To not even have to run into issues. And I'm very proud to say that I got through the entire Triple Crown without a single flat.
She had a pretty clean run with mechanicals and stuff and flats. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Ariel. I ran the same set of Sparwoods through the entire Tour Divide. When I stopped in Salida, I asked the mechanic, I was like, how do you feel about this rear tire? We got another 1,500 in us? And he was like, if it ain't broke. So, same set of tires that whole time, and then I actually...
That's a good answer. Terrible answer for the mechanic.
Yeah, no, I think he just didn't want to be responsible for doing it. And then this set that's on my bike right now, these ponchos, they're the durable 2 2.4s from Fairfield. I ran those tires for both CT and AZT, which was probably dumb. I don't know if I recommend that to everyone. I'm also not giant human, so I do think that, you know, I don't want to boast to everyone that they can do that, but those tires take gas. So the answer to your original question about what was the hardest mechanical I dealt with, my dynamo setup had an issue. I don't even have it on there right now because it got ripped out by the cat claw in Arizona. Everything in Arizona has thorns. The evidence is in all of the scars that I'm sure I'll have on my legs. But my dynamo wiring got pulled, and I think either the tire or something ripped one of the two wires. And so I noticed, because I was trying to charge things on one of the very few road sections headed into Jake's Corner, and I ended up being able to split the two wires apart and strip further back on the one that had been ripped, and kind of like reattach them with some duct tape. So that was pretty cool. That felt good to be able to fix that. Shout out to Jacob, one of our mechanics, who's taught me a lot about dynamo setups and the very small amount of electrical training that I had at one point in my life. Just make the metal touch.
Boom.
It does the charging. Yeah, so that was definitely.
Was that a master class in electrician?
That was one that wouldn't have been catastrophic, but it definitely saved me from a lot of things dying while I was out there. So I think that was probably, honestly, the worst thing I dealt with. It's just pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also, I understand why people ride single speeds, because derailleur hangers are very hard to keep straight. So there's that.
Leanne? Yeah.
Quick question.
Yes.
And a nod to you. Did any of your water bottles freeze on the AZT?
Leanne knows about my water bottles freezing, that's for sure. Yes, yeah. Leaving the North Rim in the 5-degree weather, the hose of my water bladder froze, which was a bad foresight on my part. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. It's 100 degrees outside. And then my Nalgene was the other extra water that I had, and that also froze. It did not freeze solid, which was good. I have had that happen. I tried to ride my bike to Dallas last year for Christmas because my family lives there, and I had never done it before. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe I'll try that on the day that it's 15 degrees in Texas. And I started riding that morning at like 6 a.m. and by 7 I had gone, you know, whatever, it was like 20 miles maybe, and both of my bottles were frozen solid. I was like, wow, I really didn't think about that. That hasn't happened before. So yeah, I did think of you. Because then Leanne had to pick me up and we like put the bottles on the dash and like cranked the heat. And she definitely, maybe I sagged out of that. That was the moment that she picked me up, and yeah, she took me on the go. And then
You rode the rest of the
yeah, and then I kept riding.
Just got a little help from
We
your
had
friend.
coffee and then you left.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna sound like a fake question, but this is a genuine question. It's kind of funny, but it is a real question.
Yes.
So when I put your bike on a little bit ago, I hit my head like 3 times, just like little bumps.
Yeah.
Did you wear your helmet while you were hiking?
So,
Good question. Good question.
yeah, so it was a little bit of an oversight on my part. So I actually, the only time that I practiced putting my bike on my back was with Corey, who's here. Hi. We went out to Hush Hush, our local trails on the east side, and I hiked with it there, and I made the joke when we were leaving my house, like, oh, I need my helmet, like, I'm not riding my bike. And so I didn't consider it until it got dark, and then I was like, oh, my headlamp attaches to my helmet with Velcro. And I do not have any other way to attach my headlamp to my head. So I had to put my helmet on, and then every single time I took a step, I was knocking against the back of my head. It was very annoying. Maybe that's why the last 3 miles were awful. Yeah, I tried to kind of adjust to get my head in the triangle of the back, but it didn't really work very well. And at that point, I was like, I'm so close, just get me out of here.
Just give me the concussion, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good question.
Who else?
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, just keep it. We got another one back behind you.
Going back to the water subject, can you describe the sketchiest water you drank?
Sketchiest water, yeah. It's funny because the tank looks green, but it filters clear, so there's that. So there were a couple times there are cattle tanks along the AZT, because maybe I should say it's a hiking trail. Maybe that's another reason why it's not super fun to bike on it. But hikers, they need water a lot more often than bikers do, because it takes a lot longer to get from place to place. So they have water caches that you can, they put water in before they go out to hike. So a lot of the water caches that have been built by the Arizona Trail Association, you write on a gallon of water, this is water for so-and-so. And I only took from one of those, it was Molino Basin. They had put 56 gallons of water in that water cache so that we could get water before Lemon Push. Because with it being new this year, there was not really, you're like, I don't know, it's gonna take you all day and there's no water anywhere. So I didn't take from any water caches. It's kind of a controversial thing whether or not bikers should be able to do that. But there are cattle tanks, which is a broad term. Sometimes it's a hole in the ground. Sometimes it looks like a giant puddle. There was one that was truly a tank that was above ground, and they had a field that it had a metal kind of roof on it. And I guess that was the rainwater catch, and it filtered into the tank itself. And you had to climb up on top of the tank and open this hatch. I'm not kidding, I have a video, it's crazy. So you open the hatch up, and then they've got a little gallon tied to the hatch that you drop down in there, and then you pull it up and it becomes water. It felt like I was in a video game. It was the most Arizona Trail thing that I did. That water was clear, which was cool. But yeah, usually the water from the holes in the ground is green, and then I carried a platypus filter that got everything that I got out was clear when it came to the filter. That filter's probably dead now. But then I also carried aqua tabs as well, because there were occasions that I would carry dirty water because I wasn't sure if I was going to have to filter it or not. And that's one of those time issue things, right? You don't want to filter a bunch of water that you don't need. I kind of got over the carrying water you don't need because it's really common to run out, and so I just didn't want to deal with that. I was like, there's too many other factors going into this. I'd rather just carry too much weight. It's just going to make you stronger. You're carrying your bike through the Grand Canyon. Why are you worried about weight? Yeah.
What a time to become a weight weenie.
Yeah.
We had a question at the back there.
Hi, Hannah. First off, congratulations. Very motivating. I do have a question, and it's regard to, I'll start off. It's apparent to me that you're very involved in the community, in the cycling community. You're a full-time employee here at Cycle East, and you do these incredible cycling events. How do you manage your bandwidth and avoid burnout?
Do that? No. Yeah, I'm 26. Yeah, I would say I'm very fortunate to have a community that's also super involved with biking. It's a thing that we do for fun a lot of the time, so it's kind of cool because I'm like, oh, I'm training, but really I'm just hanging out with my friends. I mentioned I've got a couple friends who are also on the same crazy train, maybe couple rows back, but yeah, I think I'm fortunate to have a lot of folks who like to hang out on bikes with me. So I mentioned Double Teardown. It's a 40-mile hills route that is not easy, and I've got a crew that does it with me nearly every Tuesday. Sometimes they do it without me, which is really cool. So things like that definitely keep me going. I did realize at a certain point, like working full-time, managing a bike shop, and then also racing my bike and also having to train for it, I was like, wow, this is like a lot of my personality, which the jury's still out on how I feel about that. I think it's going to change soon, but it really, it fills you up just as much as it drains you. And I think that that's something that has been really cool to experience, because Patrick asked me on our last episode, like, are you tired of riding your bike? And I feel pretty fortunate to not be tired of it. I'm a little scared of ever having to stop doing that. Yeah, it feels good to move my body, and I've got a lot of cool people to do it with me, for sure.
Who else? Let's pass the mic.
Throw the slam the mic.
Slam the mic.
Hi. So as someone mentioned back there, you are very involved in the community. And it never ceases to amaze me, like, how many people show up for you in a very, like, real way. Like, not just like a, go Hannah, but like FaceTiming you. She had our entire friend group make her playlist. So what surprised you the most about the ways people showed up for you while you're on trail?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty major, for a lot of reasons. There's the community here that you mentioned. You know, I say to my friends, like, oh, hey, it'd be kind of cool if you guys each made me a playlist, because then when I'm out there, I can, like, listen to it and feel like I'm hanging out with you, which was phenomenal. I mean, I've got, like, 20 plus playlists now that I get to keep forever from some of my closest friends. And so there's those little moments. Like, it's amazing to me how many people check my dot, like, on the regular. Kyle was like, I think it was about 3 times a day during ACT, which is really sweet. Just to have anybody have that thought, you know, you're out there for a really long time, and so to have people who repeatedly, like, come back and check on you is massive. Any little text, like, I mean, anytime I turn on my phone, there was, like, countless people. And yes, it's my close friends, but then it's also, like, people on the internet who just are, like, following along now, especially with how strong the women's field was. I think that a lot of people kind of caught on to who we were, and they'd see us hanging out and be like, oh yeah, you know, Kristen's right behind you. And sometimes it was like, go get them. And other times, you know, it was just encouraging to know that people were actually watching. Because it's wild to me, like, thinking about how life keeps going on even when you're out in the middle of nowhere doing something crazy. And it's really flattering to have anybody checking in on me, for sure. And then there's the, like, physical being there, right? So, like I mentioned, Katie Stremke, her partner Andrew, was there at the start and also at the finish. And then in addition to him, there was also 3 people who had scratched, who, like, didn't really want to go home from the race, and so they just came to the end. And they were there to hang out. Like, there was a crowd of people when I finished the Arizona Trail, which was crazy. It was dark, and I rolled up, and I was like, who is all that? Who are all y'all? You know, and it's like Katie's parents and Connor, who I mentioned, who, like, rode with us before, and this guy Zach, who I just met, and he literally offered to drive me from the end of the race to Las Vegas, which is 4.5 miles or 4.5 hours away by car. He was like, I'm going to Idaho. It's, like, mostly on the way. And I was like, what? Because that's where I was going afterwards. And so, like, yeah, just the outpouring of love from the community. You know, it feels like your family already just because you've done similar things. Yeah, so it's super supportive, and it always surprises me, but it's always really nice too. Yeah.
Who else? Oh, I knew I was in the right area. You know there was one coming through in that area.
Hi, Hannah. My question, I actually have two if the first one doesn't work. Did you have any crazy dreams being in such a visceral situation for days on end? And if you also want to answer top 3 favorite stretches.
An active one. Yes, dreams. Some of them. So the dreams during, a lot of the time I would kind of like wake up talking. I talk in my sleep. And so I would kind of like wake myself up talking, and I'd have these weird in and out moments of like not actually being asleep and just talking to myself. And there was, I can't remember which race it was. Maybe it was during Tour Divide. Yeah, there were definitely times that, so it was Tour Divide. I wasn't dreaming, I was hallucinating. It was like the second to last day, and I was with Satya, and we were on the section of, they put you on 6 miles of the actual like Continental Divide Trail, the hiking trail. It's in northern New Mexico that this section happens. I had not slept the night before, which was silly. And sometimes you just feel good, so you just keep going. But we were walking, it was like getting close to 1 a.m. And as I was looking at the ground, I just kept seeing wrappers. It was like candy wrappers and chip wrappers. And I was like, God, this trail is a mess. Like, why is there so much trash out here? And then I'd get close to it and I'm like, that's plant. That is not a wrapper. And I was like, oh no, it's happening. Like, I'm losing my mind. I was very hungry. That's also the biggest run out during that. Yeah, so that was really weird to have your brain do things that are not real for you. And there's always like, a lot of the time riding along trees, like I play this game where I'm like, is it a log or is it a person? Because it always looks like a person. And if you're in a place where there's mailboxes, people. They're all and so, yeah, it gets weird for sure. Which is not really a dream, I guess. But yeah. Yeah. And then the dreams after are always like, I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, where am I? What am I doing? Why am I not riding my bike? That usually lasts for like a week or so after. So, stretches? New stretches. Do I do them?
I think you have to do them.
Okay. I know one
my
for sure.
cooking stretch.
Yeah, this is my cooking stretch. No, pigeon. Everybody knows pigeon. You get down in here, and then you also pull this back.
Oh my god. No, I don't do that.
Yeah, I'm not that advanced.
That's not what
That was like one of my favorite ones.
So that's a good one.
All the time.
That's good for hips. There's also like, you do these where you get kind of like left. I'm gonna make sure I got some space. You go here, and then you like switch. That's good for the hips. Whoa. That like a lot of hip stretches there. Yes, thank you. Yeah. And then you said 3?
What about back stretch? Do you have a back stretch?
3 back stretch. Child's pose on my core hands. There's no saving my hands. I don't know, maybe just on the top too. Like when you're standing somewhere, you can like put your foot up on the top too. That's a good one. Maybe if I think of another one, I'll let you know.
Who else? Yeah.
Congratulations. Hi. Your scariest moment and your favorite moment.
What was the second one, sorry?
Favorite moment.
Favorite moment. Okay. Oh man, the scariest moment was definitely during AZT this time. I'm sorry, a lot of y'all heard this already, but I was coming out of Walnut Canyon, and I don't know where that is. It's somewhere along the route. I just remember it because I was like, where am I? What just happened? Coming out of Walnut Canyon, I was on the trail, and I had stopped because I was like, oh, I really got to pee. So I had stopped on the trail and I was about to lean my bike up against a tree, and out of the woods come two of the largest mountain lions I've ever seen in my whole life. Just running one after the other. Probably like 15 yards from me. And it was the most surreal moment because they came running across and they just kept going, and I could see them for like nearly 30 seconds. I was just standing there like, please don't let them see me. Very, very surreal moment.
You gotta be worried about what the mountain lions are running from.
Yeah, I'm running. Where are you running from? I'm going that direction. Yeah, and they're so much bigger, and it also, I think it always reminds me, like, even if you don't see the thing, it's out there. Like, they're always out there. Yeah, so that was definitely a scary moment. There were a couple rattlesnake moments, too, that I kind of forgotten about until right now. Like, I came up really early on, there was a person stopped in front of me, and he was like, his bike was like where Ben is, and he was back here, and I was like, what's going on? And then I saw there was a rattlesnake like coiled up on his front wheels. And I was like, man, what did you do? What the hell was it gonna happen? Oh man, this poor guy. So I come up and I'm like, well, I can't go around him because his bike's in the middle of the trail with a rattlesnake on it. He said that he'd been pedaling along and the snake had like tried to go out in front of him, so he tried to avoid it, and it ended up getting like caught up in his front wheel. And so when I roll up, it's like in full fight mode, and I was like, I truly had no idea. I was like, I don't know where we go from here. He started throwing rocks at it. And I was like, oh no, because then it just got angry and started like coming up onto his bike, and he was like, I'm never gonna touch my bike again. And so eventually he got close enough to like shake the rear wheel, and it popped off the front, and then he like dragged his bike back toward him, and so it like left the snake in the middle of the way. I was like, and that was really early on. And again, there's so much. I went, that was one thing, the one town we go through, I was like, is there cat venom? Like, what do you do? I still don't know. What do you do if you get, yeah, where do you get the, like, tourniquet, or I don't know what, but yeah, some scary wildlife moments. Yeah, and then favorite moment, oh my goodness. Lots of good ones. I'm trying to think of like overall from the whole race. Or the whole Triple Crown. Let's just out.
I really loved your voice memo at the end of the last episode. Whenever you hopped on, you're like, just remember this moment, like you took the time. And if anyone hasn't heard the end of that episode, I really wish I ruined the end of that episode by talking. Like, that should have been the end of the episode. It's just like done. But anyway,
that was a good moment. You know what's funny? I think I actually recorded that before Tutor Guide started. But I do remember, like it was yesterday. I toured to the start from Missoula, Montana, and I remember I had left Big Fork, and I was going to Eureka for the night, and I had done one route on my own that was just going to follow a highway for a long time, but then I had run into some folks in Big Fork, and one of the guys that was running the little market there, he was like, hey, you know, if you've got the time, you should really go around this other way on this thing called North Fork Road. That's a gravel road that kind of follows a similar route, but added like 20 miles or so. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not in a huge rush. I'd love to do that. I think it's worth the extra mileage. And he actually then gave me the number of someone who also was running like a glamping Airbnb in Eureka. And so I got to stay in this like A-frame house on the side of a river, like where I was gonna like camp at the park. So I remember on that day being on this road, being like, this is why you always like talk to angels. This is why you always slow down when you can. and like take the scenic route, go the long way, if you will. And yeah, I recorded in that moment because the sun was so warm, it felt so good, and it was a tailwind. Yeah, I could almost cry thinking about it. And I just remember telling myself, like, there are going to be times that you're going to be soaking wet and cold and sad. But there are also going to be times that are going to be really nice. It was definitely one, for sure.
Highs and lows, should we end with that, or you know, is it up to you or them? Who gets to decide? Any more questions? I think that's it, Hannah. I think you answered all the questions.
I really appreciate y'all being here. This is crazy. It's really, really sweet. Thank you so much. There's probably more beer. Shout out QP.
That's it. I've got some free t-shirts that were leftovers from Central Texas Showdown I'll give away, and I've got some other merch to sell. But other than that, thank y'all so much for coming out, and congratulations to Hannah. Hannah.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you made it this far, I guess that means the audio wasn't so terrible that you weren't able to finish. So that makes me happy. I actually bought a new audio recorder after that. I was like, okay, that was my cue to bite the bullet and purchase some nicer equipment. Again, big congratulations to Hannah. She's truly a legend, and I can't wait to see what she does in the future. All right, well, speaking of the future, like I said, next episode is the last one of the year. It'll probably come out in about 2 weeks. I'm going to give you guys a chance to get your questions in, but don't delay. Get them in. I don't know when the cutoff is going to be exactly, but you got at least a week because I'm going. I got a little international trip. I'm going out of the country, and so I'm going to do this end of year episode with an AMA, the awards, and all that jazz here in probably a couple of weeks. So again, send me your questions. Send them to bikes@bikesfordeath.com. Send me an audio version. Just type it up, whatever you want to do, and I'll do my best to answer them. All right, everybody, that is it. Thank you so much for being here today. It is always a pleasure. And until next week, you know what to do. Go ride your damn bike.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgotten from the previous night. You rode faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes, oh death. Bikes, oh death.